This is a Cuisinart coffee grinder, and I'd like to show you how to make a small modification to it to improve its performance a bit. So it's a Burr grinder, so that's the method of grinding it uses. Now, usually a good quality Burr grinder will cost you €150 or more, but this one can actually be obtained for 50 or 60 euros if you look carefully on the web. However, on its finest setting, it's not quite fine enough for good quality espresso. So you can make a small modification to close the gap between the two grinding wheels so that it grinds even finer, so you get better quality espresso. So I'm going to have a look at how we actually do that modification. So what we're trying to do, I'm just going to take off this is the basket that catches the ground coffee. If you look in here, there is two small wheels. It's difficult to see them there on the camera. There's two small metal wheels, one above the other, and there's a very, very small gap about the width of a hair between the two of them. So we're actually trying to decrease that gap even further so that the ground coffee on the finest setting is even finer than the machine does on its own. So the adjustment here to adjust from fine to medium to coarse on this grinder, you just turn that like that, and this little white mark here indicates where you are. So this would be the finest setting all the way over here. Now, to do this job, I need three simple pieces of equipment. I need some aluminium foil tape. So this is similar to the aluminium foil you might use in the kitchen if you're baking, but it's maybe slightly thicker, but it's adhesive tape, so it has a paper strip on the back that we'll actually be pulling off to make the adhesive layer visible, and you'll see in a moment what we're going to do. We're actually using the very narrow thickness of that tape to act as a shim that pushes the grinding wheel a little bit further down so that it closes the gap. We'll also need a screwdriver, a small Phillips screwdriver, and we'll need a small sharp knife to trim the aluminium foil after we put it on. So the first thing we need to do is remove this bean hopper here. This is where the whole beans are normally stored. So to do that, you literally just unscrew it off the top. And up it comes. So this is one of the grinding wheels here. This is a metal wheel, and in there is the other one, which is fixed to the motor that spins around. So this one stays still when you're grinding and the lower one spins. So this is the one we want to modify. So what we're going to do is unscrew these three screws here, lift off this metal grinding wheel and put a layer of this tape under it, and then screw down the three screws again, but this time it will be slightly pushed out because we'll have put a layer of aluminium tape under it. Now, I've actually, typically to do this modification, you need to do this several times. You need several layers of tape on top of each other. So I've actually already put 2 layers of tape on this, and we're now going to do a third one. So we start off by carefully unscrewing these small screws. Now this is an old grinder, as you can probably see, and there's coffee residue in it, so you just need to be careful to work the coffee residue out of the screw heads, or your screwdriver won't grip properly. You don't want to strip the screw heads with the screwdriver. And you're screwing into plastic here, so just be a little bit gentle with this. So the screws are actually going into plastic holes below, so you do need to be careful about that you don't over tighten the screws or just go too hard on them to damage the plastic below, or crack it or anything like that. And finally, this one. So this will just lift out now, like so. And as you can see, there's the 3 plastic holes that the screws go into. And this plastic surface here, this ring, is basically the surface that pushes the grinding wheel into position. So we need to put a layer of the silver tape between the back of the wheel and this plastic ring here. So as I said, I've already done 2 layers here, and I've decided I need to do a third one. So what I'm going to do is, let me just clean some of this coffee off here. I'll have to clean my table when I'm finished. What I'm going to do is put another layer of tape here and then trim it back. So initially it'll go on as a big square of tape, and then we'll trim it back. So let's get a piece of tape. I don't need very much. Now you just need to be careful not to put a creased piece. So you can see there's a crease on this piece of tape. So if I use that, I may end up with a surface here that's not, the surface on the wheel here may not be perfectly flat. And that may result in the wheel not spinning perfectly flat against the other one. So it may actually make contact at one side between the 2 wheels. You definitely do not want to have contact between the 2 wheels, because they'll just be sparks, and the grinder won't work for very much longer after that. So we want to make sure we have a flat piece of tape like this here. So I'm going to tear off that creased part. And I need to take tape about as far as here. So let's do that. Okay, now I need to take the backing off this. Just make sure there's no pieces of coffee left on that. Put that arm bit over there. So I need to take this white backing paper off this. Obviously you need to be careful then, it's the tape will be sticking to your fingers and so on, so you don't want to get the tape creased. If you do crease the tape, start again, because you definitely do not want a piece of creased tape in your grinder. So as I said, it's going to make that wheel lopsided. So peel off one corner here of the backing paper. There we go. So there's the adhesive surface of the tape. So I am going to very carefully place this wheel onto that, like so. So we turn it over now, and use your fingers to carefully make sure that it's properly adhered onto the wheel underneath. Okay, I think that's probably good enough. So now this is where the knife comes in. So basically I've just got to cut around the edge here to trim off the excess aluminium that's not required. We just need the wheel, the basic wheel shape. Stuff is pretty sticky, so you need to be trying to avoid to get it on your fingers or anything else that you didn't intend to get it on. It's very important after you finish this modification that you check carefully that you haven't overdone it. If you keep putting on more and more layers of tape and trying to get your coffee grind smaller and smaller, eventually you're going to put on enough tape to make the 2 grinding wheels touch each other, and that is definitely not what you want. So you need to be careful. It's possible after you put the wheel back in, and it's possible to check that the 2 wheels are able to turn. You can put your finger in there and see if you can turn the 2 wheels independently of each other. In other words, that you can turn one wheel and the other one doesn't turn with it, that the other one stays still. Okay, so that's the outside bit trimmed. Now we just need to trim the center here. From what I read on the web, there's different people require different number of layers. I suppose it depends on the thickness of the aluminium tape you're using, and probably there are slight manufacturing differences on the grinders as well, meaning that the number of layers you have to put on to get an acceptably small size of grain will vary from one grinder to another. So now I just need to punch through the 3 holes here where the screws will go. So let's do that. This knife. And here. Okay, taking care not to stick the knife into my fingers. Something that has happened on 1 or 2 occasions in the past. So there we go. That's the modification pretty much finished. We just need to line up this these screw holes here. Before you put it back on, just run your finger around there to make sure that there's no dust or debris or anything in the way of the wheel. Line up these guys like so. Get your screws. So be very careful not to over tighten these screws when you're putting them back in, because remember it is a plastic screw hole that the screw is going into, so you'll damage the plastic if you go too hard. So you've got to be careful and gentle and so on with this. So I'm going to just loosely tighten that for the moment. I'll come back to that later and finish it off. Now, this is where we need to be careful. We need to get it tight enough to, put the wheel back into that the grinding wheel is obviously secure and not loose in any way. But we need to make sure we don't over tighten, because you could damage the plastic below. As I said, you're probably sick of hearing me saying that now. So I'm going to go about that much. Okay, so that's good and secure and firm. We have no aluminium foil poking out around the inside here, so that's pretty much it. So I'm going to screw it back on now. Let's get the grinder back here for a moment. I'm going to screw it back on, and I'll have to test to make sure that, so screw it all the way in, and then in here I'm going to use my finger to just make sure that the 2 wheels are not touching. Right, seem to be okay. They're moving. They're not. I can move the lower one without moving the upper one, which I guess is the acid test of whether they're touching or not. Obviously, I'll very briefly switch it on and listen for any strange noises as well. But if you're going to do that, be careful. Obviously, you need to have it down at the finest setting here at the side, but be careful. Be ready to switch it off immediately in case you have brought the 2 wheels too close together and they're hitting each other. So that is the end of our little modification to the Cuisinart Burr grinder, which will hopefully give me better, nicer espresso results from my espresso machine. Thanks for watching.